Senator Graham, Senator Booker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The child exploitation in our country that we've seen reported is stunning and shameful and truly extraordinary when you think that this is the United States of America. An 8th grader killed on a cleaning shift at a poultry plant in Mississippi, a 14-year-old hospitalized in Alabama after being overworked at a chicken operation, a 17-year-old in Ohio had his leg torn off at the knee while cleaning a meat processing facility. Another child lost his hand in a meat grinder in a Michigan operation. A 14-year-old maimed while working an overnight shift in our country. This should horrify everyone, but given what we know, it shouldn't surprise us. I'm glad we're discussing this. I'm grateful for this hearing, and there are a whole range of things we could be doing to better serve immigrant children. But I just want to say this clearly. Employers have a responsibility to abide by federal labor law and the moral standards of our nation. Within their companies, on plant floors, and their contracts, they should follow the rules of law and they should follow their own conscience. I sent letters to meatpacking companies last December to take immediate steps to put end to these child labor abuses at their facilities. And since then, I want to say some companies have stepped up and are working to eliminate these exploitative contractors and abusive models of employment that outsources the overnight cleaning of their facilities. They've moved these jobs back in-house and guaranteed better wages, benefits, safety, and security of a union job. But too many companies continue to sit on their hands, and the Department of Labor, in my opinion, has to step up and enforce the law. These companies are getting away without consequence to some of the most shameful and immoral practices that are going on in our nation. And for companies that refuse to implement changes, who see children and their safety as a cost-saving measure, at the very minimum, should not be the recipient of federal tax dollars. That's why I'm introducing today the Preventative Child Labor Exploitation Act with my colleague Josh Hawley. Our bipartisan bill will require companies competing for contracts with federal agencies to disclose child labor and work safety infractions by the company itself, as well as by any of their contractors in the preceding 3 years, and require the Secretary of Labor to prepare a list of companies that are ineligible for federal contracts for that year based on serious, repeated, pervasive violations of child labor laws. We absolutely, all of us, in a bipartisan way, have an obligation to help these children, often in poverty, who've often fled dangerous situations at home to find themselves in our country being exploited and in dangerous situations in the United States. This is beneath the dignity of this nation and the values we proclaim. At the minimum, we need to restore accountability for those companies. And so I just want to say to Ms. Nanda, I'm grateful for your testimony. During June's hearing on this topic, I focused my questions on the consequences of our continued failure to have a Department of Labor that has the resources to do the investigations into these kind of more abject, morally bankrupt practices that are going on in our country. And so, Ms. Nanda, can you describe why child labor investigations are especially resource intensive for the Department of Labor, and what are ways in which the DOL has assisted corporations seeking to address child labor in their supply chains?
Thank you so much for that question, Senator Booker. So child labor investigations, as I said, have gone up 88% in the last year, so we're simply doing more of them. And I can't underscore enough how labor intensive these investigations are. Before the investigations even start, there is a lot of work that goes into understanding what the investigators are going to encounter when they get into that plant or that facility. What are the type of workers they will encounter? What are the type of employers? How are we going to show or prove that those are minor children, et cetera? So there's a lot of what we call pre-investigative work. We have been routinely obtaining anticipatory warrants. So that involves doing a lot of work to make sure that we have cause to get a warrant and that we can properly execute it, sometimes working with marshals or law enforcement to make sure that we will be able to execute that warrant. Often this is taking place in the middle of the night. Our Packer sanitation case involved the third shift with the very young children cleaning very, very dangerous head split cutters and other dangerous equipment. After we go in, we are immediately potentially getting declarations and affidavits from the investigators who were with the children so that we can potentially get a temporary restraining order. Our Packer sanitation case involved going in at the same time to 7 separate facilities, all in the middle of the night. So huge resources of lawyers and investigative teams, in some cases needing to be flown into different places. This is Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin, different places in the country to have that factor where we can go in and still have that surprise factor. And then after that, we are seeking temporary restraining orders. In PSSI, we were in within days getting that temporary restraining order. A nationwide, so leveraging a 7-facility investigation into a 700-facility nationwide injunction, thereafter working to get a permanent injunction, and then assess the civil monetary penalties. This takes an extraordinary amount of investigative time and an extraordinary amount of legal time and legal work. And I will just say, Senator, on your question about holding everyone in the supply chain accountable, we completely agree. We are using tools like the hot goods provision of the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is a very powerful tool to stop the movement of goods that are made around child labor. That is a tool that we are using.
I'm going to cut you off just to be respectful of my colleagues. We've gone 2 minutes over. I just want to thank Senator Hawley, and especially as well as his staff, for working with us over the last months to come up with what I think is a morally urgent bill to create needed accountability to end these morally bankrupt, offensive practices that are going on systematically in our country. So thank you, Senator Hall.
Thanks, Senator Booker. Senator Cornyn.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for having this hearing. You said you'd do it.